No steam rose from the boy's mouth in the biting cold, because his savior's lungs had stopped working 10 years ago. Leo did not notice this detail at first. He was too busy cursing the jagged root that had snagged his ankle and the deceptive tranquility of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Just 20 minutes earlier, 16-year-old Leo had been sitting on a dry rock, sketching the twisting anatomy of an oak tree, irritated by his father's forced enthusiasm for family bonding. He had stepped off the marked trail just a few yards, maybe 20, no more, to get a better angle on the gnarled bark. Then the fog had descended. It was not a gradual mist. It was a white, suffocating curtain that dropped with the weight of a heavy wool blanket, instantly silencing the forest. Leo spun around, expecting to see the gravel path. Instead, he saw only a wall of gray. "Dad?" he called out. His voice sounded flat, deadened by the moisture in the air. He checked his phone. No signal, just a mocking low battery icon. Panic, cold and sharp, began to prickle at the base of his neck. He took a few steps in what he thought was the direction of the car, but the terrain felt wrong. The ground was steeper, slick with decaying leaves and mud that smelled of ancient, wet rot. The temperature plummeted, a sudden, unnatural drop that made his teeth chatter instantly. He was about to scream for help, dignity be damned, when the branches ahead parted. A figure stood there, watching him. It was a boy roughly Leo's age, wearing a faded red hoodie and cargo shorts that were woefully inadequate for the freezing mist. His hands were shoved deep into his pockets, and his hair was plastered to his forehead as if he had been sweating or swimming. "You look turned around," the boy said. His voice was calm, horribly calm, lacking the frantic edge that Leo felt clawing at his throat. Yeah, Leo stammered, shivering violently. "I stepped off the trail. My parents are they have to be right there." "They are not," the boy said. He did not blink. His eyes were a muddy hazel, fixed on Leo with an intensity that felt invasive. "The trails twist here. You walking toward the drop-off." Leo looked down at the boy's shoes. They were covered in thick, black mud, caked all the way up to his shins. "Do you know the way back to the Outlook parking lot?" "I know the way," the boy said. He turned his back to Leo, not waiting for an answer. "Follow close. The fog hates tourists." Leo hesitated. Every survival instinct he'd ever read about screamed at him to stay put, to wait for rescue. But the darkness was pooling around the tree trunks, and the cold was becoming painful, stinging his exposed skin like needles. The boy in the red hoodie was already moving, sliding between the trees with an eerie, fluid grace. Leo made his choice. He tightened the straps of his sketchbook bag and scrambled after him, stepping into the unknown. The deeper they went, the heavier the silence became. It was not just quiet. It was a vacuum. No birds, no wind in the canopy, no distant hum of cars. The only sound was the wet, sucking noise of their footsteps in the saturated earth. Leo struggled to keep up. The boy, he had not given a name, moved with a rhythmic, relentless pace. He did not seem to struggle with the incline or the treacherous, slick roots that sent Leo stumbling every few minutes. "Hey, slow down," Leo gasped, his chest heaving. The cold air burned his throat, and he could see his own breath puffing out in thick, white clouds of exhaust with every pant. The boy stopped and looked back over his shoulder. This was when the wrongness of it hit Leo. They were standing less than 3 feet apart. The temperature must have been near freezing now. Frost was beginning to glaze the fern tips. Leo was hyperventilating, steam billowing from his face. But the boy in the red hoodie just stared. No white puff, no mist. Leo watched, mesmerizingly horrified. The boy's mouth was slightly open, but the air around his face remained perfectly clear. His chest, beneath the thin, damp fabric of the hoodie, did not rise or fall. He was a statue in motion. "Are you okay?" Leo asked, his voice trembling from more than just the cold. You are not cold?" "It does not bother me much anymore," the boy answered. Leo stepped closer, and a smell hit him. A cloying, sweet stench of stagnant pond water and wet earth, like a basement that had flooded and been left to fester. It was coming from the boy's clothes. Up close, the red hoodie looked stained, darker patches stiffening the fabric around the collar. "Who are you?" Leo whispered, backing away slightly. "Eli," the boy said. He lifted a hand to point forward, and Leo recoiled. The skin on Elias' wrist was translucent, pale as a fish belly, with blue veins that looked black in the dim light, and the fingernails were packed with grit, dark, clay-like soil that looked like it had been scratched from the ground in desperation. "We need to keep moving," Eli said, his voice taking on a wet, gurgling quality that had not been there before. "The sun is gone. You do not want to be here when it is fully dark." Leo wanted to run, to turn back and take his chances with the exposure. But he looked behind him and saw nothing but an impenetrable gray wall. He was trapped. His only tether to the world of the living was this boy who smelled like a grave. "Lead the way," Leo choked out, fighting the urge to vomit. The terrain shifted again. They were no longer in the forest Leo recognized. Huge, moss-covered boulders loomed out of the mist like sleeping giants. The path was barely a deer trail, skirting the edge of a ravine that dropped away into infinite white nothingness. "This is not the way to the parking lot," Leo said, stopping dead. "We going down. The lot is up." "Shortcut," Eli muttered. He did not turn around this time. He was walking with a strange limp now, as if his left leg was not bending at the knee correctly. "I'm not going down there," Leo shouted, panic finally overriding his fear of the supernatural. "Stop." Eli stopped. He stood at the edge of a crumbling stone embankment. Below them, the sound of rushing water echoed, a deep, violent churn. "You have to go down to get up," Eli said. He turned slowly. In the fading light, Elias' face seemed to have shifted. The features were slack, drooping slightly on the left side. The messy hair Leo had noted earlier was matted with dried leaves and something dark and crusted. "Why are you helping me?" Leo demanded, reaching into his pocket for his phone, clutching it like a weapon. Eli took a step toward him. "Because I know what it's like to wait for someone who never comes." He reached out. Leo flinched, but Eli did not grab him. Instead, Eli grabbed the branch of a sapling next to Leo's head and snapped it back, revealing a gap in the brush. Through the gap, about 50 yards away and slightly uphill, Leo saw the dull glint of chrome. Car bumper. Then the familiar yellow sign of the trailhead. They were right there. They had been walking parallel to it the whole time, separated only by this dense, thorny thicket. Relief washed over Leo so intensely his knees almost buckled. "Oh God, thank you. Seriously, man, thank you." Leo scrambled toward the gap. He pushed through the thorns, tearing his jacket, desperate for the safety of the asphalt. He stepped onto the pavement and turned back to offer Eli a ride, or help, or just to understand. "Hey, Eli, come on, my dad can." The trail behind him was empty. There was no boy, no red hoodie, just the dense, swaying wall of thorns and the steep, deadly drop-off into the ravine immediately to the left of where Eli had been standing. The spot where Eli had stood was undisturbed, save for a single set of muddy footprints that ended abruptly, as if the walker had simply ceased to exist. Leo did not run to the car. He sprinted, lungs burning. He found his father pacing by the sedan, face pale, phone pressed to his ear. His mother was sitting in the front seat, weeping. The reunion was a blur of shouting, hugging, and hysterical explanations. Leo was shaking, not just from the hypothermia setting in, but from the lingering smell of swamp water that seemed to cling to his own clothes now. They drove to the ranger station to report the incident. The heat in the station was blasted high, but Leo could not get warm. He sat on a wooden bench, wrapped in a foil blanket, while his father yelled at a tired-looking ranger about poor signage. Leo's eyes wandered to the corkboard on the far wall. It was a chaotic collage of maps, bear-aware warnings, and missing person flyers. His gaze locked onto a laminated sheet near the bottom. The paper was yellowed, the edges curling. Missing / presumed deceased name, Elias Eli Chambers age. 16 date of disappearance. October 14th, 2011. The photo was grainy. A school portrait. The boy was smiling, wearing a clean blue shirt, but the eyes were the same muddy hazel. The chin had the same small scar. Leo stood up, the foil blanket crinkling loudly. He walked to the board, his finger hovering over the text below the photo. Subject was last seen hiking the North Ridge Loop. Search efforts were suspended after 3 weeks. Remains were recovered 2 years later in the lower ravine, trapped beneath a submerged logjam. Cause of death: drowning and exposure following a fall. "You found the old board," a voice said. Leo jumped. The older ranger was standing behind him, holding a cup of hot cocoa. The ranger looked at the poster, then at Leo. He saw the color drain from Leo's face. "He helped me," Leo whispered. The words tasted like ash. He was wearing a red hoodie. He smelled like wet earth. The ranger did not laugh. He did not look surprised. He just sighed, a heavy, weary sound, and took a sip of his coffee. "You are not the first son, and you will not be the last. Eli was a good kid, always trying to be helpful. Even now." The ranger tapped the glass of the display case. "They found him with his legs broken. Crawled halfway up the ravine bank before the water got him. Lungs full of silt." Leo looked down at his own hands. They were trembling. He thought about the silence in the woods. He thought about the boy walking beside him for an hour, mimicking the motions of life, the walking, the guiding, the turning of the head, all without a single spark of oxygen fueling the machine. He remembered the moment on the trail, the close proximity, the white cloud of his own terror mingling with the empty, clear air in front of Elias' face. Leo walked outside into the cold night air. The fog was lifting, revealing the stars. He took a deep, shuddering breath and exhaled. A massive plume of white steam erupted from his lips, dissipating into the darkness. He stared at it, the visual proof of life, of heat, of blood pumping. He realized then that Eli had not just led him to safety. Eli had walked him away from the fate that he himself could not escape. Leo watched his breath fade, a temporary ghost in the night, and shivered, knowing that somewhere in the ravine below, a boy in a red hoodie was still waiting, breathless, in the dark.